back I am. It's cool though.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You are live with Courtside with Lawman.
And Carmen B.
And we are here, as we are every Friday, to talk about issues relating to criminal law, as well as events that are occurring in the community. And
Definitely. And the criminal justice system in general, and other political issues and things like that that are coming up.
And our purpose here, again, is to inform the public. You are invited to please call in if you have questions. You can reach us at the Courtside phone number, which I believe is
916.
Yeah.
8.
You would think that I would have it memorized, but
8?
I have I'm having a memory.
What's that number?
It is 916-384-8204. Again, 916-384-8204. Please feel free to call in with your questions and your comments, or to type your questions or comments into the chat, and we will read those on air.
Yes.
I will remind you that Courtside is an informational and an educational program for the public. If you call in and we answer a question for you, that does not establish an attorney-client relationship with myself, Carmen B., or
Lawman,
Mr. Staten. All right.
Okay.
Well, let's get this conversation started.
What are we going to talk about?
I think today we are discussing gangs.
Yeah.
Street gangs.
Yeah.
And the issue, are they criminal street gangs, or are they really social groups?
And the impact that they have on us in our society and on the criminal justice system.
Well, I would rephrase that to say the impact that the criminal justice system has on alleged gang members. And
you would probably be right, because there's a cartoon that I'm going to read from real fast that is in the Cow Gang Database magazine. And it is interesting because when I find it, hold on, it's got to be down this way then. Cow Gang is a database where individuals will be registered as what we call gang members, and we'll talk about how do you make that kind of a magazine and that kind of status as a gang member. But it's not what you can do for your country, but what the country has decided to do with you. Interesting quote, you see. And things exist, and what it's saying is that sometimes you are part of an organization, a group, something where the country feels that they must control you, and they do, or you're not to be respected. We're going to criminalize you, something like that. So, in a way, that's how basically gangs are seen. They're as bad things, these terrible organizations, these out of control individuals who want to do harm to the entire community, and therefore we must step on them, criminalize them, get rid of them from their existence at all. There's no good thing to come from a gang. You can't grow, you can't educate yourself.
Whose view is that there is nothing good that comes from a gang?
Well, it may be that the criminal justice system believes that, in that it passes laws that talk about gangs, your membership, and the things that you do with individuals who are considered gang members that may be criminalized and penalized just because you are acting with others who may be your family members, your friends, and things like that. But I'm taking the position that, look, it's like that thing said, what your country would do to you. If you identify yourself as a gang member, then you are a target. You are someone who others will look at as you're bringing negativity to the community. You're bringing negativity to the people. You're bringing negativity to the entire city and town. And that's not uncommon. I mean, that is the way it is right now. But if you go all the way back, being a member of a gang, and we'll talk about the definition of what a gang is, but being a member of a gang alone is actually protected by the First Amendment. Freedom of association, freedom of speech, which is why you can say things like fuck the police and things like that, and make references as long as you don't incite riots and things like that with your speech. But being a gang member alone, perfectly legal,
is not a crime. Now, the way that it is discussed in public would be an organization, because it's no different than organizations that other individuals belong to.
But people will say, wait a minute, where's the structure? They don't have any structure, organization. They're not raising money, paying dues, paying debts, creating things. They're doing nothing. So how do you call that an organization?
Well, if you look at the definition, the legal definition
you
here
throwing
in
out the law on
California
me?
of a criminal street gang, none of those things are actually required.
Well,
so
somebody's got to be getting the money. Somebody's got to be making plans for what the gang does next and the way the gang moves through society and how they're going to vote and all that kind of stuff.
I have yet to see, in my experience, and maybe you've experienced something differently, but I have had yet to see in my almost 30 years of practice, a organization referred to by the prosecution as a gang that had the type of structure that you're talking about, other than mafia type organizations, which usually tend not to be African Americans.
Yeah, and some of the, I guess you would call them the supremacist gangs and things like that, prison gangs and things like that, right? I mean, a lot of prison gangs structure and things like that become important. But still, see, that's the problem. I mean, then that means that they're just wild. People are just wild. And you claim that, hey, First Amendment, I could be a gang member. But what, you're going to be a gang member here, there, and everywhere?
Well, let me read the definition of a gang member. Okay. And this is in California Penal Code, section 186.22, subsection F. As used in this chapter, criminal street gang means any ongoing organization, association, or group of 3 or more persons, whether formal or informal, having as one of its primary activities the commission of one or more of the criminal acts enumerated in paragraphs 1 through 25 inclusive, or 31 to 33 inclusive of subdivision E, having a common name or common identifying sign or symbol, and whose members individually or collectively engage in or have engaged in a pattern of criminal gang activity. Now, that means you only need 3 people in order for the state to classify that organization as a gang. So myself, lawman, and one other person, if we had a specific,
don't we have to have all these things?
Name, yes. Well, that's not a lot of names.
We got to call ourselves something.
Right? So having a name, having 3 people, and then it says having as its primary activities the commission of, and there's a variety of crimes that are included. And those crimes range from assault with deadly weapon, robbery, homicide, sale of drugs, shooting, discharging a weapon from a motor vehicle, intimidating witnesses, grand theft, burglary, rape, looting, money laundering, kidnapping, mayhem, aggravated mayhem, torture, felony extortion, vandalism, carjacking, theft and unlawful taking or driving of a vehicle, threats to commit crimes, counterfeiting, felony use of an access card. Here's one I bet people didn't know: wrongfully obtaining Department of Motor Vehicles documentation.
Whoa.
And so that I've named many of them. It's an inclusive list. You can look at it at California Penal Code section 186.22.
Well, let's get this right, though, Carmen. Let's get this right. Some people might not realize how that penal code works, okay? So what you're saying is if I got 3 people, and we all call ourselves the Sharks, and we commit those crimes. Our primary purpose, right, is to commit those crimes. So we go out and we tag things, vandalism, right? And then we We go get false DMV documents, or we try to get false license or something like that, fake licenses, right? Because we're only like 16, but we want to be 21. That if we do that, that alone, I mean, makes us a criminal street gang. And what about violence? There's no violence in vandalism and going in and defrauding and using credit cards and things like that.
Who said that violence was required?
Well, you would think when you say a criminal street gang, I mean, it implies that violence. I heard all that kidnapping and everything and murder and stuff. I can see that. But what about this? You mean to tell me we'll be a gang if we, the three of us, well, there's nobody else over here, but if three people call ourselves a name, have a sign, a common symbol and sign though, right? We don't have a common symbol and sign. So we'd have to have a sign. How about the OK sign? Let's see. And then we go commit some vandalism because we go kick some cans around, and then we tag our name on something, and then we go use a credit card fraudulently that they will punish us more because we're in a gang.
They can add a gang enhancement
Ooh.
that would result in additional punishment.
And I'm thinking the way it runs is about 5 years for some crime, 10 years for others, and 25 to life for obviously others.
It has
the B,
if
C,
it is
yeah.
yes. So if you're participating in the gang, knowing that the gang is engaging in a pattern of criminal activity,
that'd be the A count, right?
Yes,
yeah.
A, and you are, it's 186.22A,
Right.
and you are also actively involved,
Right.
and or you assist in any felonious conduct by members of the gang, that could be 16 months, 2 years, or 3 years.
Now that just means that we're running around acting like a gang, right? I mean, what are you saying that we got to do to violate that?
Well, you have to participate in the gang with knowledge that the other participants in the gang engage in a pattern of gang activity.
So basically,
and you willfully promote or assist in further felonious criminal conduct. So then you can be punished by county jail up to 1 year, or by state prison for 16 months, 2 years, or 3 years. Now, if the crime that is committed is a felony, they can get additional punishment of 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years at the court's discretion. And that is in addition to whatever the felony the person is charged with.
Well, persons, I guess, because this has to be a crime that's more than one person has to be charged here.
Yes. And if the crime is a serious felony, the additional time is 5 years.
Okay.
If it is a violent felony, the additional enhancement time is 10 years.
And then it goes on to throw life at people.
Yes, it does. There is you could also be sentenced to a indeterminate term of life imprisonment.
Yeah.
With the minimum calculated, it could be 15 years, and then it depends on the crime. So it could be 15 years if the crime is home invasion, robbery, or carjacking, or discharging a weapon from a vehicle. 7 years if it's extortion. And these are all additional times that would be added on to the sentence for the substantive or the main crime.
Wow. So it sounds like, we don't want to do this gang thing. Why do you think people get into gangs and stuff?
Well, I don't believe that the purpose of most young people, and quite honestly, usually it's young men, get into gangs purely for the purpose of participating in crime. I don't believe that at all. I believe that there have been studies that have shown that it usually is for the camaraderie and the socialization process that comes from being a member of a group.
Well, wait a minute. Then why not play Pop Warner football or some kind of a Babe Ruth baseball? Why don't they just do that?
When's the last time do you know how much Pop Warner football costs? Pop Warner football can be expensive. And so if you are a poor person, your mother or your father may not have the, $300 or $400 or $500 that it costs to participate, including the money for the uniform, the money for the cleats, all of the things that are needed for that. So this is that's a more formalized group. This is more of an informal group, but these are people that you feel camaraderie with, that you love, and that you believe love and care about you. And I think that more people become members of the gang for that particular reason, the love of their neighborhood. It gives them, when you're poor and you don't have anything, what you do have is you have your neighborhood. You have that place where you grew up.
Right.
And so I think that is the reason that young people join those types of organizations.
But I hear, you said 3 or more, right? But there was something called.
Well, I didn't say 3 or more.
Right,
That's what
I'm
the law
sorry.
says.
The law says 3 or more.
Yes.
I mean, it could have said 5, it could have said 6, but it chose 3.
Why? Why do you think it chose 3? Only 3.
More than 2.
Only 3.
To get as many people qualified as gangs or organizations qualified as gangs.
Because that means if you think about it, right? In junior high school, people form these cliques, and it's not just African American children.
Sure.
All children will form these cliques, and they will want to have something that allows everybody to identify us. This allows people to identify
Bad Girls.
We are together.
The movie Bad Girls. It was 4 girls, right?
I don't think I ever saw it, so I'll have to let you talk about it.
I don't know if I saw it either, but but it was something about bad girls, and it was 4 young teenagers. They were all white girls, and they were into really, being the pretty ones on campus, and they would do crimes to people, like maybe some vandalism or, hush up that girl, do this, push that girl, they would do things together and stuff. And it would be 3 or more. It would have a common bad girls, their name, a sign. I'm not sure, but maybe glitter.
I don't think it requires both the sign. I think it's
just one or the other.
One or the other.
And then they get together, and their primary purpose is to hurt people, to put stuff on them. My goodness, that would be a criminal street gang.
That could potentially qualify now, couldn't it?
Yes, it could. Wow. So even 4 little boys who love Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. I mean. And yet they go out, I don't know, they vandalize things with Dungeons and Dragon paint, and they steal to get their Dungeons and Dragons stuff. So you basically, almost anything could be a gang if you characterize it under that statute, right?
Well, they have to meet those criteria, but those criteria are very easy to meet.
Kind of vague in a way.
And I think what young people don't know and don't realize is that this membership in this group can be used against them in such a way to add those additional punishments if they are involved in a crime.
And what happens is character evidence now is allowed to be used against you about your character for violence, maybe theft, and all that kind of stuff. Who you hang out with and what are they doing because of the predicate acts requirement that they also have to show some action, and turns into convictions from individuals that may just be members of your gang, but yet you don't have to know who they are.
You don't even have to know them. And most times they aren't people that they know, but they have reports of other people who've identified as members of that group who have been convicted of crimes.
Right.
And a lot of times young people are shocked. They're like, well, how can they use that evidence in my case?
Right.
I don't know that person. I've never met that person. I've never even heard of that person.
Right.
But because that person identified as a member of that particular group, that person's conviction can be used to establish the predicate crimes.
Wow.
And how many predicate crimes do they need?
I think only 2. And within 3 years of the current date. So they have to be fresh in a way.
If you consider 3 years to be fresh.
Well, only because probation is generally 3 years. So anything within 3 would be something that a person could still be on probation for.
Probation used to be 5. It's now 2 for certain crimes.
Well, sure. But I mean, when the gang statute came out, 3. So I don't know how that would affect the thing now that the probation now can be terminated early.
Well, I don't
But-
think the predicate crimes, the person doesn't have to be on probation, because a lot of the ones that I've seen, the person is actually, it's a crime where they've been sentenced to state prison. Now, you have mentioned a number of times about the vandalism, but what I see being used as the predicate crimes are the worst crimes. So they find the offenders who have committed the worst crimes, and then those are what they use as the predicate crimes.
Correct.
And those crimes have the impact, I think, of just really scaring the jury.
This is who he hangs out with. This guy who was involved and convicted of an attempted murder.
Well, that's the belief. That may be the belief, but that's not really the truth, because as we said many times, the predicate crimes are crimes committed by people that the person charged currently with gang enhancement does not even know. So it would not be someone that he has hung around. But
Sure.
there is that
But that's coming in.
insinuation
Yes.
that, you know, that
because it's in your
this
trial.
is someone else that is a part of his group.
That's right. And they don't have to know you. So it just seems then that all of these rules, though, I mean, you know, they're getting the bad guy, aren't they? I mean, they're getting the bad guy. We're not getting Dungeons and Dragons gangs and things like that, right? We're not getting bad girls, you know, taken in and stuff. You know, we're getting the hardcore gang members.
Well, are we? I'm going to let you answer that. Is that
Well-
is that what you see happening?
I see prosecutions that involve only Black and Hispanic individuals. I don't see a lot of prosecutions when it comes to Caucasian gangs or anything like that. And now, is that because, though, that's what they identified? That's what I saw in that neighborhood. That neighborhood is blue. That neighborhood is red. You know, they start associating that neighborhood over generations to
Well,
being one side or the other.
but let's talk about something that you just said in terms of you don't see prosecutions of others. You see prosecutions of young African American, mainly men. Maybe on the rare occasion, there may be a female alleged with a gang enhancement, but I think that's pretty rare. It's usually young African American men or young Hispanic men.
Yeah.
Now, we know that other groups exist that could be classified as gangs that are made up of
mean
other
girls, yes.
that are made up of other individuals.
That's right.
Isn't there one something with clowns?
Oh, well, that's funny you would mention that, because there's the Insane Clown Posse, which gets confused or mixed up. Really, it's a group, a musical group, and that has a weird following, you would say. But then again, many people involved in it are committing crimes, and therefore
Well,
they
so
can use
then
the gang
couldn't it?
enhancement. Yeah, they can call them a gang.
Now, the people who are followers of that group tend to be
Young
White.
white people, yeah, and they have you can have tattoos. You can have. I mean, you can.
And
you
so
can associate with them.
in the last 5 years. How many prosecutions have you seen that involved a white gang?
None.
And neither have I.
I mean, 30 years. Yeah, I've
Now
never seen
we're we as African Americans are a small percentage of the population. I believe we
of
are
the legal
12
community
to
right now.
12 to 14%. I'm talking about of the general population.
Oh,
So
okay.
how is it that we are such a great percentage of the people who are being prosecuted for gang crimes?
Because the law allows us to recognize and identify and validate individuals, and therefore call them gang members. And when a crime occurs, because that's what they do, right? Crime. When they do crime, now we can throw additional sentences and years upon them.
I think you may be being sarcastic, but I have to make sure that our listeners are aware of that sarcasm. When you say that's what they do crime, what do you mean?
Well,
Are you being sarcastic or
let's just say this. You have done something and they arrest you,
What if you
And-
haven't done? I got to call you on that
Okay.
now, lawman, because I've had clients who had done nothing but were wrongfully accused. So we cannot leave those people out. There are people who have done nothing but who've been accused and who are now having a gang enhancement thrown at them
because they lost ultimately.
Well, I'm
Right.
saying, well, now I'm not talking about at
meaning
the end.
they got convictions in the end. No. See, okay.
So,
well,
but they're charged with the gang enhancement. They're facing it.
Gotcha. Now,
that additional risk.
Of course, I'm not talking about those. Those are pending cases. They got to go through trial before we adjudicate.
No, I'm not talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not specifically talking about any one particular
No.
pending case.
Right.
I'm just saying you can have someone who has done nothing
That's right.
wrong, but
Sure.
who has been arrested for a crime
Yes.
and then charged with that gang enhancement. And what it has the effect of doing is this. If you didn't do something wrong but you're charged with a crime, and on that crime, you're looking at 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years in state prison. But there's a gang enhancement that is attached to that adds an additional 5 years or an additional 10 years. And you know that if you go to trial and you have the unfortunate luck of losing, even though you really didn't do the crime, the jury believes that you did and they convict you. You're looking at that additional 5 or 10 years stacked on top of that 2, 3, or 5 year sentence. And so that is an added incentive that will make people plead to crimes they did not do. Because if I can have 2 or 3 years on this crime right now if I plead, even though I didn't do it. But if I go to trial and this jury doesn't believe me and they convict me, I'm going to get 12 years. That's enough to make an innocent man plead. We don't want that.
Well,
and our society should not want that.
True.
There is no reason to treat, in my mind, there is no reason to treat an individual who commits a crime, who has membership in a gang, any differently than anyone else who commits that same crime.
But I've got a law that says I can do that.
Well, the mere fact that there's a law that says that you can do it doesn't make it right. We know that.
True. But how do I get rid of that law? I mean, I can't get rid of the law, so all I can do is say, okay, kids, don't be part of gangs, right? Don't be in gangs. Just say no.
But that's not true.
That's right. That's not going to work.
What I'm saying is that's not true, that we can't get rid of that law. The law was written into existence. The law can be written out of existence. And that will bring us kind of back to what we talked about last week in terms of being proactive and being involved politically with your representatives.
So you're saying that we as a people, the people, can go to politicians and ask that they overturn laws such as 186.22 or modify it.
Yes.
To some extent.
Yes, that are being used mainly against African Americans to send them away for longer time periods. If I'm a victim of a crime, it's not going to make me feel any better that, okay, this person committed the crime against me and they were not a member of a gang, so they're only going to get 2 years. But this person who committed the same crime, because they have this association, is going to get all of this additional time.
But
it
wait.
Doesn't seem, when we talk about, we have to talk about also we have to talk about what's fair and what is just.
Now, I want to make this point though. Isn't it true though that the prosecutor still has to show that the purpose of you committing a present crime was for the benefit of, association with, and under the direction of a criminal street gang?
That is true in theory. But you and I both know that once you introduce the gang enhancement, you raise a certain level of fear in that jury. And whether or not they're going to actually hold that prosecutor to proving that or allow that fear to rule their minds, that this particular person is a member of that organization. We just heard about predicate crimes where someone committed an assault with a weapon, also committed a murder, and another person committed a robbery. We don't want these people running around.
But they got to show the specific intent of me doing the crime at hand was to benefit that gang.
How do they show that?
Well, he got respect because he committed that crime. He showed those gang members he's doing work.
Okay, and that is a ridiculous straw man that is built up by law enforcement, so-called gang experts, who themselves, I don't know, their claimed gang expertise comes from studying the gang, attending classes. These are not people who can say, well, I was actually a former member of this organization, so I know this is how this organization operates. And specifically, I have yet to see a gang crime where the person who committed the crime took the proceeds from that crime, ran back to the clubhouse and said, everybody, I just got $1,000 from this robbery, and now the 20 of us get to all divvy it up.
But you know what they do? They go back and they say, man, I just pulled a great lick on this person. I got all this money and stuff. Man, we gonna get some champagne and stuff. Man, we doing it now. Isn't that sharing that proceeds with the gang?
No.
Why not?
And that's an argument that prosecutors prosecutors like to make.
If they can show that.
You tell me why that should not qualify.
Oh, so you're gonna make me flip right now, huh? Go on the side. All right. I gotta show my skills as a prosecutor. All right, okay.
Not as a prosecutor, as a defense
why
attorney.
It doesn't work? Oh. Well, look, first of all, they're not gonna have anybody come in and testify that this party was thrown. Okay, nobody's going to say that the party is thrown. And
what if somebody does?
Then they have to show that, I guess, I financed it with my money I got from my gang work, that I somehow used that money I got. But you know what they can also show, though, is that I'm running around all proud. I'm running around now. I got respect from people because of the lick that I pulled. If you can't show that money flowed, you can show now Keith is a respected person out here now. What Keith says, now people are going to jump.
And so in your mind, now I'm asking you for your personal view of that. Do you think that showing that, this person did this and they got a certain modicum of respect from the other people because they said, oh, wow.
It's not quantifiable. There's no way
to quantify respect. And every human being, you show me a human being who doesn't want to be respected. We as human beings all want to be respected.
That's right. Whether we're carrying guns or not, whether we're pulling crimes or living our life.
Being respected is just a normal human
want, need almost. But what they do though, Carm, and you're right about the gang experts now, these people that we call gang experts. What they do is they say that they talk to gang members. They talk to gang members' families. They've interviewed victims of gangs. They've interviewed everybody. And then now they have the knowledge because they mix that with everybody. Well, okay, but they interview
they've interviewed a couple of
groundwork.
People, and usually the people that they have interviewed are people who are themselves in trouble and who are willing to say anything to try and get themselves out of a situation. So how reliable is the information if it is coming from someone whose purpose is to try and get themselves out of a situation?
Because I talked to Detective 1, 2, and 3, who also did gang work in this department, and they told me everything about gangs. So now I know. It's my turn to know.
Well, let me just ask you, do you believe that in your mind as a defense attorney, does that qualify a person as an expert? I talked to some other people who told me they talked to some other people. It doesn't usually involve research. It doesn't usually involve looking at what the sociologists say about the nature of gangs.
Okay, and double hearsay now. We had some case law that talks about how the gang experts, if they're going to talk about situations, it has to be reliable upon something and not just hearsay. But see, that's what they do, right, Carm? If I can shape you.
But the fact that they do it doesn't make it right. And so this is my point is, once you introduce the gang enhancement, you are much more likely to get a conviction because jurors hear the words gang and they are frightened. Right. They don't think of it as any other social organization that young men are using because maybe they don't have male figures in their life. And this group of males that they hang out with make them feel loved.
Yeah, it's not the little rascals and stuff like that, our gang and all that kind of stuff. And what's happening is 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old boys, yeah, they need to be loved too. So, you get love from the streets, like you get love at home. You get love everywhere. In fact, my view on love is, hey, it's a little overbroad because there you can love everything. People can love you. You can love everything. But is it really love? And then love is always going to be measured by what you have, what you give. So here we have young men. No, meaning this. Look, if we have to reach out and touch these boys, these people, these gang members, people call them, and try to teach them more self-respect about themselves so that they won't need the collective group to validate who they are. And you won't measure me by how violent I can be, by how monstrous I can become, because I can feel very safe that I am who I am.
Well, it's funny that you would say that, because I think that then brings us back around to the discussion of who is funding the music. There is music that portrays us as being very violent, constantly wanting to shoot up other people.
Music that reflects gang lifestyle, gang living, gang success. That's a whole.
But who funds that? Who funds that? Since we as African Americans have minimal wealth, now they're going to.
I don't know. Gang members today are everybody got $1 million contract.
That is still minimal wealth as a people. I'm not talking about specific individuals. Yes, you can always point out there's this person who has $1 million. There's this person who has $10 million. But I'm talking about if you add all of us up together, the wealth that we have is minimal in comparison to the wealth that other Americans have. So who is funding this music that is so...
Well, how about this? It reflects a gang lifestyle. It reflects individuals who want to kill each other.
Who's promoting it?
Well, wait.
Who's promoting
Two levels then. Because I would say at first, it was a lot of people who didn't look like me. It was the record executives, producers, things like that. Might even been politicians nudging people to promote this, promote that. But I think things have switched around a little bit now because everybody can become their own music maker. And it really, really has switched around now. So now you see, and this is what I talk about all the time. It's unbelievable. All these rap artists. I hear about rap artists. Everybody's shooting at each other. People are dying. And that guy's popular. That guy has made it, in the rap world and stuff. I don't know who he is and stuff. And yet he's on national news as being a victim of violence and stuff. And it makes it seem like, well, then every rapper is rich. I mean, they're just breaking in the money because they're showing me on the videos how they doing this and stuff. And you're putting it on the internet and all that kind of stuff.
And we know that everything that is displayed on social media is not as it is. There are people who perpetrate to be living a particular lifestyle, and they are not living that lifestyle.
And I get it. And you know what? If you go get $5,000 of hundreds and stuff, it'll look like it's a lot. And it might impress a few people if you just lay down and flag it around your head or something.
But and I'm not. Why are young people? Yes.
Why are we susceptible to that? Because we live in this society of get yours. We are in a capitalistic, you better get your society.
What about the rest of the community?
Sometimes everybody's so into that cycle and affected by that the rest of the community starts diminishing. Those who can stop, those who can come up against it starts diminishing. And we start falling into this terrible little, what do they call that? The dark circle from that movie.
So
we're choking Carm up today. We're choking her up. I told you we're going to talk today. All right, don't choke to death. I'm a liability.
So if it's diminishing the community, at some point, won't the community disappear?
Yeah. And yeah, I fear that stuff.
Oh, we have a comment from Mr. Mack stating, what about the gangs that were at the Capitol, the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers that were there? There is video of their crimes. And I have yet to see any one of them
That's
be
right.
charged with an additional gang enhancement.
That's right.
And I believe that the federal government does
Could now,
have
they could define them as a gang.
gang charges
Shoot,
that they
easily.
could add.
Easily.
You know, you have the
Easily.
Fox News people always talking about
That's
MS-13 and frightening people that
That's
MS-13 is sending people across the border. But they don't, these groups certainly
They
could
can
be
charge the
classified
capital
and described as
as
crimes,
gangs.
as gangs, and
Yeah.
they entered our capital
That's right.
and committed crimes.
Which sounds like treason, which should be a life offense plus 15 years or 25 to life. Easily. Easily, because some boy shoots somebody down the street here and he kills them. He's going to get 15 to life and 25 to life.
Stacked on top of that.
That's right. And what, how old is he? 17. Oh, my goodness.
For a grand total
How
of
could that
40
happen?
to life.
And now I got two families who are grieving. But that's the way the law will be applied. We know that.
When
You
you
know.
be applied to
To that young boy, but not the person who was at the Capitol may have killed the cop. Right? I mean, you know, look, you're right. You're right about these laws. And I've been playing the devil's advocate over here and stuff like that, you know, because I've been doing this gang work for as long as you have too, Carm. And then, you know, even deeper, you know, because I do see, and I must love my young brothers and stuff. I have to love them no matter what they're going through and why they're going through it at that time. Because I can't vilify them. I can't preach that they're so wrong that they lose respect with me. You see, I always got to try to reach out and touch them and offer some alternative ways. And it's hard work. It's tough to do. I mean, come on. You know what? We can tell you the story about Ronnie. You know, I mean, you do what you can to help, and you try and you counsel and you tell, and just things happen and flukes happen and people are gone just like that.
a lot of what happens is based on a level of poverty. And so, if you have people who are living a second class citizen life and who are living in poverty in a society that tells them through its
Get
commercials,
this, get that.
through its media, that
Change.
you are nothing if you don't have material things, you are going to have people who are willing to take unreasonable risks to get those things.
Get something.
And so, what we have to do as a society is to get back to the fact that you are more, your worth to us, to this community, to this country, is more than any material item. And you have to know that about yourself, and you have to believe that about yourself.
No
There
way
is
history.
not a pair of Michael Jordan shoes or a
Phones.
gold chain or a phone that
That's
is worth a second of your life in prison, because prison is nothing but another form of slavery. We don't want that for you. Your parents don't want that for you. Your grandparents don't want that for you.
You really don't want it
And
for
you don't want that for you. And what we're trying to do here is to educate you. A lot of times, young people don't know this legal definition of a gang or what's required or the elements that are required until once they're already handcuffed and they're in custody at the county jail, and we're meeting with them to discuss their representation.
And it's you know, you do enough gang cases. You do enough stuff. You I'm gonna tell you, it's a pain. It is literally pain sometimes. A heart pain, however you want to imagine it, it's pain. Because I get to watch, you know, and I've been in cases where there's been 9, 10 co-defendants, you know, I mean, you name it, and it's a gang, and besides all the defendants, I'm the only black man in the room, you know, and it's kind of funny, but it's also the time when I have to strip off everything and I have to stand up and like I am a father figure to these men, to these boys, you know. I mean, a lot of them, they talk to me. They will ask me a question. They lawyers sitting right there, okay, and they're asking me the questions.
They're asking you the questions because you're a face
That's
that
right.
looks like
They see
theirs,
me and
and
they
they
recognize
trust
me.
that
That's
you
right.
they
Will
you
tell them
will
the
tell
truth.
them the truth.
That's right. That's what I mean by it. It's a pain to have to do that, but I don't. I do it. I don't give a. I don't care that their lawyer is there. It doesn't matter to me if the lawyer. I don't give a shit. You know why? Because the lawyer isn't going to say nothing to me.
Let me ask you this. There is a process by which officers identify young men and classify them
Yeah.
as gang members.
It's called
What is-
validation.
Yeah. What does that take?
Whew. If you can satisfy 2 of 11 criteria, and the criteria is could be very simple. It could be something that you did not do, that meaning you didn't write something, do something, be somewhere. It's something, an impression of you. 2 things, and you can be
2 out of
validated.
11. So one would be the color of the clothing that you're wearing, and perhaps you're with someone else who has either claimed gang membership or who has been validated by an officer.
That's right.
Those 2 things would be enough.
Don't let me see you in a photograph or some movie or some kind of film.
And doesn't
You
that,
see?
that bring us back to social media? Social media is used against young men to help get these gang enhancements. So you're
Absolutely.
taking a photo in your mind, you're there with your friends, your camaraderie, you're throwing up your signs to show your love for your neighborhood, but that is being seen and used as proof that you are part of this gang who engages in criminal behavior.
Activity. Nothing criminal on the picture, but it would be one aspect of something that can validate you. You saying that you are part of a gang would do it. Like she said, you associating with someone, you wearing certain clothing would be one. So, it's very easy because a while back, News and Review, Hosani did an article about gangs. And, I started telling him really what's happening, man, is that we're getting dolphins in the net. You swing out there and you're trying to get all of these gangs, but you're catching dolphins. And if we're catching dolphins is illegal, then we got to be careful of the net that we throw out. And what dolphins are individuals who my cousin I hang out with. I grew up with this man. He may do what he does and I do what I do. We live across town from each other, but we hang out all the time. Tonight, he's wearing his red shoes. I'm wearing my red. Being stopped at that point, looking at those 2 factors would be 2 factors out of 11 to validate a person as a gang member. And what that just means is you get to go into a database. That's all. Your name goes into a database. So now, whenever you are stopped or anything like that, the flag comes up.
That shows that they have already validated you
5 years it stays.
As a gang member.
And it's supposed to fall off after 5.
It's supposed to fall off after 5 years,
Right.
But I've seen that it does not, or a person is coming up close to that 5-year time period. Law enforcement finds another reason to stop them over and revalidate them. So now the time period starts over again.
And you also see that it's not just that database, because that database is obviously open to anyone, especially in law enforcement. But what you see is that sometimes people keep just picture magazines. You know how you would just put pictures in a binder, identifying different groups and things like that. And that's what you might use to help you identify people as gang members. So I'll tell you that validation system, it is not unconstitutional. It is used, and it is not a crime itself. Like I said, you can validate me, and being a member, not against the Constitution, not against the law. In fact, the Constitution promotes it. First Amendment. I can associate with who I want to. I'll tell you something. It's
You can, unless it's been identified as being a criminal street gang, and you still
Yeah.
can, but just know that that will be used should you be accused of a crime to try and increase the punishment that you could be facing.
and you got these groups, the Proud Boys and things like that, who all they probably, you get 186.2 dudes, they'll fit the bill, but it's a prosecution decision.
A lot of times, people will have questions, and in fact, there's one question that's in, um, and it's that I had a friend that was accused of gang membership, accused of a gang enhancement, but had never claimed membership nor been in a gang. How is that possible?
That's what we're talking about. You're associating with them that night. You took a picture with them, or associated with them on another occasion. You've been validated, or you don't have to have any validation if they show I did a crime with you under a theory of aid or abet.
Meaning the person
Yeah.
did a crime with
This
someone
current
who
crime,
is
right.
identified
Exactly.
as a gang member.
And thus, this is what we're talking about: is that I benefited the gang by going along with it, by showing my pride or anything like that, and that's how you can get that enhancement too. Now, I'll tell you, I mean, if you look, here's a scenario for you. Sort of feel like Slick Rick about that. Here's a little story that should be told. So I got a little kid and he wants to be a stick-up man. He wants to be a robber, right? It's similar to the story. So he goes and he said, he turns over 16 now. So, he can be filed as an adult. And he associates in his neighborhood with a gang, and we'll call them Strip. That's the name of the gang, Strip, right? He associates with them. That's all. But now he grabs a gun and he pulls a robbery. And during that robbery, he says, that's right, Strip did this. Strip. And he runs away. Person wasn't hurt. Person lost what? Tennis shoes maybe or something like that. There's some people, right? Credit card, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not hurt. They call the police. They give a description. They pick the person up. So first thing that happens, Carm, right, is robbery with the gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Robbery is a 235 crime. With the gun, 10 years. Okay, now let's see. You know what he did during that robbery? So it's worth 15 years.
Yeah, 12 years,
16 years
13
old,
years, or 15
mandatory
years.
prison.
In state prison.
That's right.
Real state prison.
16-year-old.
Not county jail.
That's right. But you know what he did during that robbery? He said Strip did this. And you know what Strip is? Because I can go get other people and I can prove that Strip is a gang. Okay? I'll show that Strip is a gang. And this guy saying that, even though I don't see him with anybody at the time of the crime, he represented that gang. He got pride from that. He put fear in the victim and the community that the gang is robbing people. So, ladies and gentlemen, apply that gang enhancement, and guess what he gets? A minimum of 22 years, a maximum of 25. So what's the offer? What do you think they would offer the guy? Because a minimum of 22, a maximum of 25. So if you want to talk about how statutes apply, how young men can make decisions that truly affect the rest of their life, is it fair or not? If you want to ponder over that, you can ponder using the laws in the state of California. And you can see how that one action could actually pile up more 20 years in enhancements.
Because he said the word, what's the name?
Strip.
Strip. Because he said
Strip's
the word
doing
strip.
this.
Now, if I'm the victim of a crime,
Are you scared of Strip?
I don't even know who Strip is.
Who is Strip?
Had somebody said Strip. Well,
I figured he said,
yeah,
all right, brother.
Yeah,
But he
I'm
ran
not
away.
afraid of the word strip. I'm more afraid as the victim of the actual robbery
Took
that
my
is
money.
occurring to me. So why is this person getting so much more time? Because they stated a specific word.
because
Now,
that victim does not have to know.
The victim does not
That's
have to
right.
know the game.
That's right.
Not at all in
Can't
any
the victim
way,
don't say,
shape,
"Oh
or
man, you mean
fashion.
Strip's doing this to me?" Okay, boy, here, let me give you the stuff, and I'll see me tomorrow.
So
I'll
what
give
is-
you more stuff.
So let me ask you this, lawman. What really is the real purpose when these gang laws are being targeted against Black and brown people to give them substantially longer state prison sentences? What is the real purpose of these laws?
All right, I'll professionally say this, that the purpose is to incarcerate in a heavier fashion as many young men as possible from particular neighborhoods and places.
And what does it feed? It feeds that prison,
prison
industrial
industrial system.
complex
I got you for 20 years now. How long are you going to work for me? 20 years.
of basically free
That's right.
work.
Because if I got you out here working, you might can make $1 million and $2 working for me for 20 years. But now you're going to make that for the state. And what's happening to your family, you 16-year-old who just went to prison? How was your maturation into a man? Where is it? So these laws that we talk about, this is all can be so devastating. And here's my problem.
Devastating, not just to the person
Oh,
they're
yeah.
opposed against,
Families.
but against the entire community.
And so I always got to ponder, how do we stop this? How do we stop this, Carl? How? If we can't legislate, which is a way of trying to stop it, like 3 strikes we saw when it first came out.
We
it was
can
devastating.
legislate. We can advocate.
Yes.
We can advocate for the repeal of these laws that are applied to us in a discriminate fashion. And that is what we see. And that is what you see if you look at the incarceration rates.
It's why it was so high that the Fed courts had to say, I've got to get people out of prison. But you saw minor things, just like 3 strikes, minor things end up in life sentences, end up in sentences of 20, 30 years for minor things. And nobody's here to say, hey, man, just take that robbery. You see what I'm saying? That's a minor thing. I'm not saying that. But in different situations, like you take a gun away from a robbery and put a knife in my hand, and that's a totally different situation. That's a 9-year difference right there. And you accomplished the same thing.
The exact same thing.
Exact same thing.
The victim was still frightened out of their minds.
That's right. Gave you the thing. You didn't have to stab anybody. Didn't have to do anything. So.
But that gun gets you an additional 10 years. And that brings us to the fact that the allegation that there was a gun, they don't have to. A lot of people think, well, they have
didn't
to find the
it.
gun, right?
Nobody saw it.
They can't actually charge the gun against me just because the victim said that an object that they believed was a gun was pointed at them. Oh, yes, they can. And there are probably many a young man in state prison serving a 10-year enhancement or a 20-year enhancement or a life enhancement because he used a toy gun, but it was never found. And the victim testified that it seemed real, and the jury believed it and found that enhancement to be true.
That's right. Might be a video even, where hey, it's a fake gun. I don't know. It's black and white. I don't see the color.
That is the one instance where I advocate. In every other instance, you do not make a statement you assert your Fifth Amendment right. But if you have committed a robbery and you know that what you used was an air pistol and you are arrested for it, you know that air pistol, oh, I hid it right over here. That is the one time where I'm like, tell them where that air pistol is. You ain't got to say you did the robbery, but be like, the air pistol's right over there. So it will save you getting that 10-year enhancement.
It's real life. It's been going on for a while. We've stopped 3 strikes blood of 25 to life for pizzas and bicycles and things like that.
But people can still get it if they commit another serious or violent crime. And people need to understand that. And the system does not care how young you are. So let's say, 10 years ago, I had a robbery case and but and I had 2 different charges, right? And now I'm accused of a burglary. That was 10 years ago. Those strikes were 10 years ago. Surely, Carmen B, they're not going to use those strikes against me. That was 10 years ago. I was 18 when that happened. I'm 28 now.
I got a job.
Yes, they will.
No, they can't.
Yes, they can.
They can't.
They can.
Yeah.
And they just may.
Right. Because there is
And
this
so
strike
if
review
you
thing.
have
Yeah.
strike priors, that's a risk you cannot afford to take. There should not be an item out there that is worth you going to prison and getting that potential 25 to life. Or they might be nice and say, you know what, we're not going to use both the strikes. We're just going to use one, but you still end up with
mandatory prison,
with double-digit numbers.
Unless
it's
you
not
work
worth
it, unless you can really work in striking that strike. And that
I was talking about the
time.
situation where they have multiple strikes. Yeah.
But true, 25 could be if the third is a serious and violent.
It's
but
just not worth it. There's nothing out there that is worth it. Now, lawman, we're going over our time. We're coming up on the time where it is time to say goodbye to the people.
So we're going to sing from The Sound of Music.
Oh, we're not.
A goodbye song.
We are not going to
sing. I practiced and everything. My goodness.
We are not going to sing.
All right. What are we going to do, Carl?
You usually have a tidbit of knowledge for the people. I had. I'm looking for it now. It was well, go ahead. It was.
Hello, everyone.
It was.
While she finds that post, I guess my tidbit today is, and our lesson that we learned is that, you can view gangs as you can actually view them as a positive thing if you want. You can view them as a negative thing, but it's going to be the law that dictates what happens to an individual. We, as African Americans, have to promote more for our kids in terms of pride and opportunities and things like that, to try to give them football games instead of gangs. We just got to keep trying, because the system definitely eats our kids, and we wonder why. How many mamas I heard holler and stuff, and why and this, and I got to look at the law. I go, well, there it is. We kind of voted that stuff in. We did. You don't remember, but we did. And so that's why.
Or if you didn't vote, you allowed people to vote,
do it,
and then to have it impact your life.
And it keeps coming back around to that, doesn't it? That because we're in a system of laws, it is laws that set us free. It is laws that we have to control. So, Carm has something. I say keep on voting. Keep on voting. We'll talk about this again.
Ooh, I think next week maybe we will talk a little bit about the district attorney election. The quote is, and I don't remember who I pulled this from, but I'm going to say whoever it was, I appreciate it before. It says it takes 6 to 8 pallbearers to lift you up when you're deceased. Imagine what you could accomplish if you had 6 to 8 people lifting you up while you are living. This is what we need to do for these young people. We need to be involved, and we need to lift them up so that they don't become a statistic, so that we don't lose them to violence, so that we don't lose them to prison. It doesn't help us to cry for them once they are gone. Let's do things to lift them up now.
And everybody's take the small role. We're not saying you solve. I can't,
because you can't solve. We have to do it as a community, unit, and as a group.
Yeah. And however, by any means necessary, frankly. And I think that's a true I guess feeling that you can get from that word, by any means necessary. There's nothing negative about it. There's nothing violent about it. It just means that you got to do everything you can. When you see, you can do. You got to see before you can do.
And young people, you have to let us do. You have to take us up when we are offering to help you. It's not hollow. And I tell young people that I represent all the time, when you get out, you come by my office. You keep my card. You call my number. You need help. You need to get an ID. We'll get that done.
Yeah.
Because we know without an ID, you can't get a job. Yep. You need help getting your Social Security card.
Yeah.
We are here to assist you in whatever way that we can.
That's how community works.
That's how it has to work.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I guess we got to bid
you
farewell.
adieu.
So the music will start in just a minute, and we're gonna do this thing.
Okay. I don't know what he's talking about.
All right. Catch you next time
Have a good
on
evening,
Courtside
everyone. Courtside
with Carmen B.
and Lawman.
That's us.